So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Justice League. So let's start the series. Mars, and Mariner's Valley in particular, would be ideally described as having a desert atmosphere with a wind that degraded the entire landscape, devoid of any life. Contrary to popular belief, however, there were actually two astronauts in this incredibly harsh environment. American astronauts, as shown by their flag, which symbolizes the recently occupied planet and a new human frontier in space. The little spacecraft where the two crew members had landed was next to the red, white, and blue flag. The astronaut looked around him and asked, "What do you think of this? A little piece of heaven?" "Yeah, if your idea of heaven is a barren, lifeless rock," countered the second man, who was also carrying a drill. The first one remarked, "You have the soul of a poet," finding his colleague's humor amusing. I said, removing the irony from my voice, "Carter, we didn't come for the scenery. Our mission here is purely scientific. Are you getting any readings?" I questioned, referring to the gauge on each of our digging instruments. Carter looked at his colleague and stated, "There are no H2O levels." However, before he could say anything further, he observed a peculiar rock formation to one side behind his partner, from which a tiny glimmer was coming. Without spending any time in his investigation, he said, Wait." The second man, not knowing what Carter was watching so intently, replied doubtfully, "What?" The first man approached the unusual gleaming substance by strutting along and using the planet's low gravity. When examined more closely, it turned out to be rock lodged among others. He drew his little pickaxe hastily. Carter said with optimism, "It might be an ice crystal," and started to dig. The second man, intrigued by his discovery, came rushing over. "No, I think it's organic material." He was able to remove the rock with one last strike, so he could examine it closely. When his companion noticed that the area where he had retrieved the stone was collapsing, indicating that it was nothing more than hollow dirt beneath, he yelled, "Carter, watch out." The two astronauts were hurled away from the region, as the earth quickly opened after striking a weak spot. Unfortunately, neither of them, at least not both, were quick enough. Carter plunged into the freshly created abyss. When the crack stopped advancing, he walked closer to observe. "Carter, are you okay? Carter?" he yelled, startled, as he gazed into space. Dispersed debris blocked the path behind the fell astronaut, causing him to land in a cleft. He fell in a few seconds, and the low gravity held him even though the plunge was severe. He heard the call over the communicator and responded, "I'm okay, Ed," but oddly, the communication likewise ceased as soon as the underground cave's entrance closed. All he could hear now was static. "I'm fine, go ahead. Go ahead." Static. He muttered, "It's not working," and got to his feet. He turned on his helmet light so he could see more clearly. The first thing he noticed was the tunnel sealed by rubble, but when he turned around, he never imagined what followed next. He stepped back in surprise, and gently raised his helmet light to gain a clear picture. It was a wall that led to a big door at the far end, and had numerous carvings carved into it. He opened it, having nothing to lose. Despite his best efforts, it was too large. With his helmet on, he looked around and saw the pike that had fallen next to him in the light. With a triumphant smile, he proceeded to get it so he could use it as a lever to open one side of the door, or rather, a lock that was clearly visible in the middle. Despite the difficulty, he managed to extract it with a single stroke, like to removing a cork from a bottle. The engravings, which were also on the door, started to radiate a strong white light that spread from the cork protrusion to the top and all the way down. Before long, it opened, letting forth a strong gust of wind from inside. No one was around to hear the astronauts scream, and something other than wind emerged. Any ninja must be able to gather information. It is essential to their vocation and part of their entire definition. Unfortunately, Naruto did not possess these abilities in his early days as a genin. He didn't learn how to do it correctly until legendary Sannin trained him to be an adept spy and informant, only at a level that was comparable to what Gamma Sannin could do. When he came to this odd world more than 2 years ago, this skill was put to the test. In many aspects, including economics, technology, borders, and continents, it was a very different world. Socially, not so much. A lot of statutes were still in place, and while the titles were different, the fundamentals stayed the same. Crime, evil in general, and wars all persisted. Naruto wants to make that adjustment. And that's what has led him to this point. His ability to infiltrate and acquire intelligence allowed him to bring down hundreds of criminal groups, including many political scams. This was occurring on numerous other continents in addition to the United States. He worked in that field, but this mystery was the biggest of them. Since his arrival, he had discovered hints of it. Something was wrong. But despite his best efforts, he always came to a dead end when attempting to connect the dots. Whatever it was significantly more organized than normal. It was so advanced that it even looked like a military technique, unlike even corrupt politicians or militarized anarchic systems. War strategy. Yes, everything had a systematic beginning. They had, for whatever reason, turned off the global deep space monitoring system. I initially believed it to be pure insanity when I was learning the language and about contemporary computer systems. a mechanism for monitoring distant space. I was genuinely astounded by this society's progress, particularly the section about traveling to the moon and departing Earth for Mars, but alien phobia. Really. Before he found out about Superman, the Kryptonian on Earth, that absurdity lasted for about 10 minutes. Really, an extraterrestrial residing on Earth and combating criminal activity. Super strength, super speed, flight, immunity, super durability, laser and X-ray vision, and frozen breath. As a result, the Kekkei Genkai of his universe appeared to be only incidental. When Niji and Naruto friends witnessed the Kryptonian superpower in comparison to their Sharingan and Byakugan, I would have wanted to watch their reactions. Going back to the subject, Superman's own idealism was being used to carry out war tactics, eradicate detection in space, and now start the process of disarmament worldwide. Is it a coincidence? Then there were kidnappings, abandoned events and buildings, and odd disappearances. Arriving at an area that had been entirely demolished but had individuals taken prisoner in bizarre organic-looking capsules was unusual. It made him think of Zetsu in a strange way. Once is a coincidence, twice as suspicious, and 3 times is a pattern, as the adage goes. He could see that something was amiss, and to make matters worse, it was occurring on a worldwide scale. Only recently had his suspicions grown more intense. This suspect behavior had escalated over the last few months, with many laboratories functioning in such a dubious way, and him frequently coming into contact with Batman, the Dark Knight. Not exactly. Naruto had never told him or anybody else that he was there. In other words, he may have been captured on video on a few times, but it was only an urban legend. When he met not only Batman but Superman himself, things had escalated to a new level. 3 scientists on top of an antenna were engaged in combat by the two. He certainly hadn't anticipated Superman being knocked down seconds later by a splitting headache, and it goes without saying that the scientists demonstrated incredible physical prowess. It's strange, Naruto thought, seeing from a distance. Being overcome by a simple headache wasn't normal or natural for him, who was hailed as the world's strongest rescuer. After successfully luring Batman away with Superman's sudden illness, the scientists retreated so that one of them could use an odd remote control to destroy whatever was inside the antenna. They never left any evidence, which was another issue. To Naruto's relief, Batman managed the situation fairly well, despite Naruto's want to step in and stop Batman from capturing Superman, as the monitoring station started to collapse beneath the explosive's impact. That means I can still maintain my anonymity. Considering everything they had witnessed in their lives, their astonishment at finding themselves on the ground was nearly unnerving. The 3 scientists were in appalling condition, but they had survived the explosion. They should not have been alive medically because one person's arm was punctured through another's, and their legs, necks, and elbows were twisted. However, they were, and they had also fixed themselves. Naruto decided to follow the 3 suspects because Batman was already having enough trouble fighting Superman, without being able to stop them from leaving. He had no desire to step in. The people in charge were in front of him for the first time, and they were the only ones who could guide him to the core of the issue. The monitoring took several hours, and he never thought it would bring him to Star Labs or Metropolis City. From his position on the roof, he was unable to observe what they were doing at the facility, but their activity there was brief. He accosted them as soon as they had departed. Naruto thought, they're strong. As soon as he walked up to one of the subjects, he was just there to question, not to kill. The woman there deflected every strike he tried. It was his turn at last. In order to fully protect himself from the attack, the blonde had to use both arms. By strengthening his muscles with chakra, he parried the attack, causing the woman to lose her footing. He sent her flying backwards with a solid right punch to her stomach, a left to her chest, and a high right hook to her jaw a few milliseconds later. The 2 scientists launched an attack after realizing that his colleague was insufficient to defeat this individual. Naruto quickly shocked both men with his powered electric aura, that odd Kekkei Genkai he had unintentionally created, while preparing to create the elemental lightning Rasengan, and used both arms to stop the strike with his bare fists. Both males lost their human bodies, but the impact was sufficient to push them back. They were reduced to 2 whitish, nearly viscous, skinless beings. Astonished, he exclaimed, "What the hell are you?" Zetsu was not skilled enough for this. The fact that the woman he had pushed down had likewise assumed that form had escaped his notice. They responded in an odd language and, without waiting, produced odd weaponry in response to the question, "What do you want?" The trio started firing. I guess I won't get any answers today. Naruto quickly and effortlessly sidestepped the lasers, jumping left, right, diagonally forward, and then left again. Once out of range, he launched 3 electric beams at the weapons, rendering them inoperable, and, incidentally, causing damage to the wielder's weapons. He knocked them out in about 3 seconds, and they disintegrated in an unsettling way. The blonde said to himself, "Ugh. These guys have already surpassed Zetsu. They're on a whole other level," with contempt. The sound of bustle within the building broke his inner monologue. What he found inside was a fight between Batman and a dog of some sort. Like the other 3 he had encountered seconds earlier, it was entirely white, which made it somewhat odd. The weird monster was rapidly catching up to the Dark Knight, so he had little time to admire it. Naruto decided that enough was enough and leaped just in time to catch Batman, as the thing threw him into the air, preventing him from hitting the ground. Naruto brought him back to reality by asking, "Are you alright?" The Batman on high alert immediately asked, "Who are you?" And it was obvious that he didn't trust him. The creature wouldn't wait for introductions, and the only issue was that it was snarling at them with malice. When the creature lunged at Naruto, he decided he had no time to waste, and pulled out his 2 lightning-release chakra swords, cutting the creature into 4 X-shaped pieces before disappearing into a white puddle. "I think it's best if we talk later," he remarked. "I guess this is faster," feeling relieved that they were gone. "Do you know what those things were?" Batman responded curtly, "No." As he entered the office that the creature appeared to be guarding, 3 of those odd cocoons, each containing a human, were found within. Naruto complained, opening a cocoon with his lightsaber. "4th time I've seen these things." Batman imitated him. They discovered they resembled the 3 observatory scientists when they took them out. That explains the mystery of the scientists. The blonde man's features caught Batman's attention as he looked at him sideways. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 3 lines on either side of his cheeks, a metallic band with a spiral and an external triangle drawn on it, right on his forehead, made of dark blue fabric. A red coat with black lower edges. A grayish-green jacket underneath the coat with a wide protruding solid collar and multiple pockets. A long-sleeved dark blue shirt matching his pants. He wore sandals of the same color. And bandages around the top of his left leg, holding the pants up so he could wear a strange kunai carrying case over them. Batman came to a decision at last. The Dark Knight admitted, "I heard about you, but there was no concrete evidence. Until today, I thought you were a myth. Basically, it's about criminal gangs that disarm themselves, but always claim someone was present. That and blurry photos. I've been following these rumors for over a year, and not just in US cities. Mexico, Canada, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Argentina. Not just in the Americas, England, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Italy, and of course, the other continents." Naruto was rather taken aback by the Dark Knight's rapid-fire remarks. But there was never a clear name. "Who are you?" Naruto was about to respond when he heard a rocking explosion behind him, followed by cries. They hurried out of the lab to look into it, startled. The sight of such a huge asteroid plummeting into the city was unexpected by both of them. The cops were waiting for the fire to subside after firefighters had already put it out by the time they arrived on the site. When a shattering sound came from the enormous alien rock, steam was still billowing in the air. A moment later, a long, enormous thing appeared from inside, revealing itself to be only 1 leg of what seemed to be 3. Naruto moved swiftly to seize the 2 policemen who were in the white leg's route, hurling them from the scene, and giving them back to Batman and the firefighters. As the blonde boy landed beside Batman, he saw the space rock's shell being destroyed by a sort of white machine that came out of the interior. It destroyed a police car by first firing a laser from a red crystal on its head. Superman was already on the scene by now, speeding for the bizarre tripod-like apparatus with the intention of hitting it. Before Superman could touch it, the red crystal fired again, as if to direct its attention on him. In front of thousands of onlookers, Superman was knocked off a building and bounced painfully to land in the center of the street, causing everyone to hear his cry. Taking in the whole scene, Naruto remarked, "I think we already know why they wanted to neutralize the deep space detection systems, right, Bat?" He turned to look behind him and saw that the bat had vanished. It was boarding a huge black plane that looked eerily like a bat as he looked up at the sky. "Man. I guess what they say about him and his toys is true." Naruto attacked because he didn't like the way things were going, and noticed that the tripod was still hurting people. He was going to strike one of the legs with his lightning chakra swords, but the enemy's armor was sufficiently hard to stop a quick cut. It took a lot of effort on his part to break it off entirely, but at last it buckled and the tripod fell hard onto the sidewalk, losing its equilibrium. That was all that was required to destroy it. He started to say, "That'll teach them not to attack where," but was cut off by other yells. Additional space pebbles had fallen during the confrontation, and additional tripods were emerging from each one, but he was too busy making noise to notice. "This won't be so easy." From his batplane, I saw Batman engaged in combat with one of them. To Naruto's dismay, the space machine appeared to be unaffected by the massive missiles he was releasing. Superman had recovered and unleashed a barrage of tremendous blows that sent him spinning toward a bridge, giving him no reprieve. The Man of Steel was partially knocked down and struck the machine's red rock directly, opening it, but before he could get through completely, it launched a devastating laser assault at close range, sending him flying once again. Batman launched another missile attack, but it was ineffective because he avoided the machine's numerous lasers. Naruto moved to the area where the Man of Steel was buried beneath debris, but Batman picked up a massive piece of building debris like a tiny chair before he could assist. Maybe not even Tsunade him in Sage mode could match his strength, so the blonde backed off, almost terrified. Naruto said, "Are you alright?" to Superman. "No damage, by the way." "Who?" Superman screamed and had a terrible headache before he could complete the sentence. Naruto attempted to assist, but once more, the agony disappeared as abruptly as it had appeared. Superman? He inquired, observing that he remained motionless for a short while. He left Naruto behind and flew out of the city without saying another word, his mind buzzing with questions. He scratched his head and asked himself, what the hell just happened? Naruto was startled out of his reverie by further explosions, as the Air Force joined the army in attacking the invaders. Batman followed Superman in his Batplane, suggesting that he was more intrigued by his enigmatic departure. With a sigh, Naruto considered his options. Should he follow the heroes? Or remain and protect the city? All he had to do was respond to the cries of the populace. He would take care of this before pursuing the heroes for clarification. X. Superman has been trailed to a government base by the Dark Knight. It was amazing how quickly his desire for truth could cause harm. He proceeded to what seemed like a laboratory, past a concrete wall coated with titanium. He came upon individuals imprisoned in those peculiar cocoons once more. He chose to ignore them for the time being, and follow Superman's obvious path of destruction, where he was now ruthlessly beating on yet another titanium door. The bat boomerang aimed at Superman's flank served as the Man of Steel's sole warning. Hold on, Superman. Destroying government buildings isn't your style. What's going on? He grabbed the door and pried it open after another hit made it loose enough for him to do so. See for yourself. As they made their way down the hallway to a smaller titanium door, Batman caught sight of the sophisticated computers. Superman tore it open like a piece of paper. Inside, the Dark Knight noticed a green humanoid hanging from pillars with a peculiar construction partially covering its head. Batman went to inquire, but before he could do so, he noticed an odd movement next to him. Both heroes were alerted when the familiar blonde adolescent emerged in a flash of yellow. He was sitting on the ground, breathing deeply, and appeared to be weary. Those things. They were endless. I managed to defeat 4 of them, but every time I did, 3 more appeared, he murmured in between sighs. When he saw the humanoid in front of him, he immediately brushed the question aside. Can you tell me what you're doing here? He questioned. What is that? Superman turned his attention to what was in front of him, and ceased to wonder why the blonde man was there. Humanity's last hope, he said, releasing the green humanoid and shifting the main controls. Before he could touch the ground, Superman grabbed him. Lately, he's been trying to contact me telepathically, but because of this ecstatic field, I couldn't fully understand him until a few minutes ago. Batman walked up to the humanoid and questioned, what are you doing here? Batman retreated a step. The response telepathy came straight from his brain. The invasion. He stood up by himself and said, I came to warn you, but I was captured and locked up here. You didn't listen to me. What a surprise, said Batman. The humanoid changed form, adopting a costume resembling a hero's, complete with a cape, blue boots, and 2 red stripes across its chest. I sense you don't trust me. Perhaps this will help. It had had its long cranium reformed into a more human-like form. He addressed himself courteously, trying to shake the Batman's hand, but the superhero remained motionless. I'm John Johns. Rather, the blonde chose to answer. While the Martian continued to stare at Batman, he introduced himself solemnly, saying, and I'm Naruto. Superman responded, don't take it personally, John. He doesn't trust anyone, defending his friend. The humanoid returned Naruto's welcome after confessing, I understand, wise tactic. It's a pleasure, Naruto. Batman questioned the blonde man directly, not the unidentified humanoid. Now that we know that, how did you get here? He released John's hand to grab Batman's cloak and extract a tiny, nearly undetectable white tag from the bottom, confessing, I marked you in the lab. The other 3 men waited for an explanation, interested in the terms the blonde man used. Basically, this mark allows me to teleport to wherever I am, in this case, next to you. I didn't know it could happen. Interested in the gadget, John remarked, teleportation, interesting. Thank you for staying to defend Metropolis, but until today I'd never heard of you. Superman admitted. In a nutshell, Batman said, he's dedicated himself to taking down several advanced criminal organizations around the world. Beyond that, it's not important at the moment. All 4 of them walked out of the building. They were blinded by lights as soon as they stepped outside. We need to contact the board immediately. Stop, Superman. You're violating a restricted area. The general said, obstructing the hero's way with the whole unit. We have orders to keep that freak here. Wait. The steely man interrupted. I'll vouch for him. He must let us go. I don't think so, I obstinately said. He defended himself against the general's obstinacy by saying, but the security of the world is at stake. He responded by drastically altering his form to that of those white humanoids, which his platoon imitated, and pointing the same weapons that Naruto had used in his prior battle with them. That's why he'll never get out of here alive. John reported on alert, it's them. Batman and John fled behind a nearby tank, as the platoon opened fire on the heroes, with a higher caliber weapon taking down Superman. Naruto took deep breaths and performed hand seals, while he dodged lasers from left to right. Kaden. Carry end in NA. Fire release. Dragon Flame Fire Bullet. He threw a massive flame from his mouth on the enemy's front line, easily scorching them. Behind you. John admonished, unexpectedly utilizing intangibility to get by Batman and Naruto, and employing a psychic barrier to stop an enemy assault from behind Naruto. The blonde was appreciative, but it also made him shudder because it reminded him of Toby's comparable talent. Unlike the blonde, Batman was able to quickly overcome his surprise and knock down the white creature by striking him in the head with a bat boomerang. Sadly, the humanoid ally had been undermined by the barrier. Batman pushed him to hold on, grabbing his shoulder and guiding him to his flying vehicle. The ubiquitous Superman, with a tank sling over his shoulders, said, "Get him to safety, I'll cover you." Waiting for John and Batman to board the superhuman ship, Naruto remained behind him. Batman took off, and Naruto hurried onto the ship's tail, securing himself with chakra in his feet to keep from falling. After completing his mission, Superman dropped the tank on the adversaries before following them in his own aircraft. "That was close," the Dark Knight acknowledged. "It's not over yet, look." John gestured to the deserted base, from which enemy ships were launching. Batman's ship started evasive maneuvers against the onslaught of the remaining enemy warships, while Superman instantly attacked and destroyed one spacecraft with a soaring ramming push that cut through it like a javelin. They were all fearsomely accurate and had good navigation systems. Naruto recognized his chance when they barely escaped a precipice. The ships were perilously near the edge and only required a slight shove. Hand seals were done by Naruto. Wind release. Great vacuum sphere. Batman's ship's tail produced a real air bubble. 3 enemy ships were pushed toward the cliff with enough accuracy to detonate. The issue was that, despite Superman and Naruto destroying a few ships together, they were swiftly gaining airspace on Batman. Naruto complained as he saw Superman fly against a cliff after being struck by a laser. "And this is getting complicated. We can't fall like this." Shadow clone spear dart. 3 clones, each clutching a glowing blue orb, dashed out of Batman's ship in the direction of their assailants. Rasengan. A ship was destroyed as each clone was sacrificed. Then one of the other spacecraft slammed a laser into the Batplane's wing, sending it tumbling slowly down, and the other ships followed. Naruto used electrostatic energy to hang the ship in midair by concentrating his electrical power. Batman couldn't believe it. That kid can control the elements wind, fire, and lightning, he thought suspiciously. It was Naruto's luck. The green barrier surrounded them, repelling the approaching ships as they prepared to assault. On top of the cliff, they were gently lowered onto a plateau. John declared, "I'm coming to help," after realizing that Green Lantern was the one defending them against the assault. Meanwhile, the several ships were being hit by a girl wielding an electrified war club. The humanoid being departed Batman's ship to assist after noticing this. Batman remarked, "Hawkeye." He was impressed to see her present as well. At last, Superman became one of the heroes. Green Lantern said cynically, "I apologize for being late. An uprising kept me up. In moments like this, I regret not knowing how to fly," the blonde man said out loud as Batman emerged from his ship to watch the aerial conflict. He noticed a crashed ship crashing toward them and abruptly yelled, "Watch out." Naruto saved himself and Batman by repelling the wreckage with an electrical wave. Hawkgirl fell to a high spot on the cliff after being hit by a laser. The ship saw this and went to kill her, but a black-haired woman stood in front of it before it could get to her. The black-haired woman expertly used her bracelets to deflect the alien ship's several lasers, even hitting the ship itself. The ship was now headed straight for them both, but she was unaware of this. In a flash of yellow, Naruto appeared in front of Hawkgirl and the black-haired woman, holding a 3-pronged kunai. He saved them both by repelling the ship with the same electrical wave. Superman was asked by Lantern, "Who are the rookies?" "We better regroup," was the steely man's response. After defeating the threat, the group reconvened at the location where Batman's ship had crashed, and at the very end, they were joined by a surprise visitor. Flash shouted out, "Hey, Bat," as he walked up to the Dark Knight holding something. It was a wing from his ship, but he handed it to Batman without realizing it when he saw the dark-haired beauty who had landed. "I think you dropped this. Where have you been all my life?" Their first reaction, not comprehending what Flash was trying to say, was, "On Themyscira." "Huh?" I whispered, perplexed. "Flash." Hawkgirl said, "The home of all Amazons. I thought it was a myth," as she and the other heroes touched down. She said courteously, "I promise you it's as real as the ground we're standing on. I am Diana, Princess of the Amazons." Flash exclaimed, "Pinch me, I must be dreaming." "Ow." But Superman elbowed him instead. Since not all of the heroes in attendance knew him, Naruto chose to go in and greet Diana, just like the new acquaintance. He admitted, "Nice to meet you, I'm Naruto. You could say I'm a wandering ninja, without having a designated term for his profession." Reminiscent of Kurenai-sensei, he shook her hand and thought, if her eyes were red, she'd be a copy of her. "How did you get here?" He told Naruto and the other heroes, "Themyscira is protected by the gods, but I couldn't stand idly by while the rest of the world was in danger." Superman, congrats. It was very fortunate that you showed up when you did. "No," John said, cutting the discussion short. "It wasn't luck, I called her telepathically." Naruto stepped forward and said, "Wait, you're trying to say you called all of us?" The humanoid gave a nod. "Including me." he continued incredulously, and to everyone's surprise, John nodded once more. John clarified, I did it on a subliminal level, although in Superman's case it was a bit more severe, but Flash didn't find that sufficient. He shouted, almost with a headache, wait, I usually catch everything very quickly, but could you explain to me what's going on here? X. The group listened to the now confirmed Martian's story in silence for a short while. Centuries ago, his civilization on Mars was destroyed by the same invaders that were now attacking Earth. His family, his home, and his people were all annihilated. The final Martian was him. Then, once the astronauts on Mars unintentionally woke them up, the invaders launched an attack on Earth. They then dispatched advanced squadrons to take down Earth's defenses. That was odd. Batman and Naruto talked at the same time, which nearly made Superman chuckle, but he was also involved in what transpired. That's why they deactivated the Deep Space Monitoring Network. He was utilized. It was he who broke up the missiles and left Earth vulnerable to them. Lantern's eyes were green with resolve as she cried out, we have to stop them before it's too late. Perhaps it's too late, John said, looking up at Metropolis from the mountains. Before the hero's eyes, a thunderstorm and a gray, nearly brown cloud soared above the mountains. It's already begun. Hawkgirl questioned, what are you doing? The invaders are nocturnal, John disclosed. They want to block out the sun so they can live in perpetual darkness. Naruto came to the conclusion, I guess we have to take them down while we still can. I agree, we must launch a frontal attack and destroy those factories. Diana concurred. The two so-called amateurs appeared to take offense at Green Lantern's response. Look, young men, this place is not for amateurs. Diana was the one who answered the fastest. She grumbled, we Amazons are born warriors, to Lantern. Look, Green Lantern, was Naruto's first response. The black-skinned Lantern was shocked by the accuracy, saying, judging by your condescending attitude, you must be a soldier from around here. You think that, along with your supposed experience, gives you an advantage, or maybe it's your age. I was 16 when my village went to war alongside 4 other nations against a criminal organization. I'm an elite ninja from the Hidden Leaf village. I served my purpose, and I would let some green firefly tell me I'm not up to the job. Diana and Naruto attempted to challenge the Green Lantern to a headbutt, but Superman intervened and yelled, stop, stop. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We need all the help we can get. Lantern reluctantly walked between the two affronted people and said, fine, sorry. Naruto simply growled and started to object once more, but Diana's hand blocked his way. We'll have many objectives. We need to split into teams. This unique alliance of the world's heroes began when Naruto said, the best thing to do is to divide ourselves according to our abilities. As he landed on some debris in what looked to be Egypt, the blonde lad grumbled, I really need to learn how to fly. He wasn't complaining that Diana had flown him here, but he didn't enjoy being a burden to other people. Naruto observed carefully as Diana waited for him to take action. Okay, there's one of those machines. According to John, they can only be destroyed from the inside, so we have to find a way in. It doesn't seem to have any openings. Diana let out a sigh. The Amazon princess soared up and tangled the tripod's long legs with her rope, saying, then I'll make one. It collapsed upon the smoke machine as she tugged, using all her power to force them shut. The entrance they had been waiting for was made possible by the weight. She was approached by Naruto. That's how an Amazon does it, Diana proudly said. He laughed and added, okay, I'll try to remember that in the future, as they entered the machine together. Diana also said, by the way, thank you. Why? Asking Naruto. With a tinge of anger, she added, it was thanks to you that we were able to come to this factory without the others. Lantern and Batman's idea was to come with us because we're rookies. It really bothers me that they consider me inferior. I have experience, I've trained hard with the other Amazons, and for them to say I'm inexperienced because they've never seen me in action, it irritates me. She said more calmly. No problem, Harem. He said nonchalantly. I have the same problem. I've spent the last 2 years in complete anonymity, and it's natural that no one knows me, because I didn't want them to. Only now have I been forced to reveal myself since I can't face these things alone. Being called a rookie isn't to my liking either. Diana gave a nod, but then she saw something. Harem? She asked skeptically. He admitted, laughing, it means princess in my native language. Here they call it Japanese. They were unable to savor the occasion for long since enemy fire arrived as soon as they made progress. Diana jumped forward and used her bracelets to repel the assaults. The 3 aliens ran when they realized they were ahead, one of them awkwardly avoiding a beam of light that had cut through during Diana's earlier strike. With a voice full of the intensity of combat, she yelled, they run like cowards. What are you waiting for? Come on. He mumbled to himself, she really does have an attitude, as he followed her, but not before taking a quick look at the partly clear sky. Since the smoke machine was still working, he had learned something crucial that he would share with the others. They kept moving further through the many hallways of the facility, until they came across another group of aliens. Diana came forward as a defender once more, but Naruto chose not to play the passive role this time. Then he started sprinting, past the Amazon. He continued running, using the curving and uneven walls, until he came to the ceiling. Shuriken Cage Punch and No Spear Dart. He then hurled a shuriken that multiplied into 4, each of which hit the attacker's weapons from an inverted posture, causing them to explode. The aliens ran away. The win was short-lived, as another squad appeared right as they emerged, and then more appeared behind them. Diana grumbled, "There are too many of them." Naruto followed her back down another hallway. As they got farther away, a door opened and more of them began shooting at them. The woman at last gained elevation. That way. The Amazon flew to the higher duct to gaze at Naruto, who was still below, making odd hand gestures that mirrored those he used prior to hurling those spike discs. "Get up here, I'll cover you." Fire release. Fire blast. He exhaled, blasting his numerous opponents with a dense, thick fire. The blonde boy hurried along the wall to the duct where Diana was observing him, after the whole area was covered in flames. "Let's keep going." Diana was astounded and exclaimed, "How did you do all that?" Although he wasn't sure if the fire was a reference to Diana's gravity-defying movement, he was delighted by her look and admitted, "It comes with the ninja part." He was sure, however, that it was satisfying to take a formidable Amazonian warrior by surprise. It's an easy way to explain it, but now we're racing against time. Let's finish this place and get back to the rendezvous point set by John. Diana flew after Naruto as he ran to what was ostensibly the central area. Diana pointed to the item floating in a sort of orange shell and said, "That must be the crystal John was talking about." Naturally, there were foes everywhere, each one intent on completing their own mission. "By destroying it, we'll stop the machine." Naruto grinned almost sinisterly and said, "Okay, but I'm going to do more than just stop him." He clarified swiftly, leaving Diana a little perplexed, "I'll need some distraction while I finish off that thing. You'll command my clones." The blonde realized why, so he chose to demonstrate it with deeds. Taboo Cage Punch and No Spear Dart. At least 50 identical blonde men materialized next to her in a puff of smoke. Great hair. That was the only thing the Amazon said in awe. Naruto waited for her to contradict himself before asking, "Should I leave everything in your hands?" My recovery took a few seconds. "Yes, trust me." Naruto smiled and confirmed, "Understood." "You heard the lady, she's in charge." They all yelled hi. In their own language. The original blonde looked at the Amazon once again. The original blonde disappeared in a tiny tornado with a simple hand gesture. "Don't worry about casualties, they're just copies and easy to destroy, one hit will suffice. Though that doesn't mean it will be easy to land that hit." Shunch and No Spear Dart. Diana spoke authoritatively to the clones, "Okay, now we're going on the attack." Her primary goal was to divert the aliens' attention from her valuable crystal, so she issued the orders swiftly. "The 10 in the back to the post at the top, the 15 in the front to the bottom, the rest will come with me." "Yes," was once again the unanimous reaction. This time, in contrast to the previous time, they all responded by taking action. They pulled out their chakra blades, and a sort of pure lightning chakra emerged from the crystal inside of them. So the organized attack by the team started. During the whole conflict, Diana was in awe. Several of those duplicates even rescued her from a surprise laser strike from behind, demonstrating their outstanding fighting skills, and successfully diverting all the aliens. This also meant she didn't tire as quickly in combat, since she didn't have to concentrate on multiple enemies at once. After 10 minutes, the copies were only half as strong as they had been before. A hand seized Diana's shoulder just as she was about to hit another of the aliens, who seemed to be as limitless as the copies themselves. Her natural instinct was to fight, and she attempted to hit the space person intruder. Before her fist could make contact with the original Naruto's face, it stopped. A blow like that would be the same as one from Sakura, and he started to perspire coldly. He didn't want to go through that again. Still trembling and sweating heavily from his punch, he explained, "Calm down, Diana. I just came back to let you know everything's in place." Naruto indicated the glass when the young woman finally lowered her hand. Both inside and outside, papers were adhered to it. Before long, the Amazon discovered that they were all over the base. With curiosity, she inquired, "What are those things?" Naruto gestured with his palm, making all the papers flash. "Seals. I mean explosive tags, and they'll all explode." He grabbed his shoulder once more and added hastily, "In 10 seconds. Hold on." Naruto interrupted her, before she could complete her query, "What are you?" As they both vanished in a flash of yellow light. She asked, "Doing?" And then, in the blink of an eye, they were out of that weird machine. Diana noticed that they were exactly where they had landed when they arrived and inquired, "How did you do that?" "Teleportation," he stated succinctly. "Could you do that? Why didn't you bring us here that way before?" the Amazon said, slightly irritated and partially bewildered. After all, it had been hours of journey from Metropolis to Egypt. Naruto indicated the wall enclosing them and said, "The only way I can teleport is through these tags." Diana nodded sympathetically as she said, "That means I have to leave one at point B to travel from point A." However, the sound of multiple explosions drew their attention before she could speak. Multiple internal explosions were causing the bizarre alien gadget to explode. Such devastation had not even been anticipated by the Amazon herself. Diana repeated, "Wow, what were those labels you put in there?" "Where I come from, they're called explosive tags. It comes from a ninja technique called Fuenspread, just like the teleportation I use," he stated again. "Now, I think we have enough evidence that the entire machine was destroyed. We need to return to the rendezvous point. John is calling us." He chimed in, and it seemed Diana could also sense John's call. Naruto held out his hand to Diana. "Are you coming?" In a startled and mildly amused tone, I inquired hastily, "Did you leave one of those tags at the meeting point?" I held Naruto's hand and all I wanted was his smile in return. They were gone in a burst of yellow. The sudden assault had left Metropolis City in ruins. Naruto and Diana saw the open and fearless thefts taking place. Diana looked at the spectacle disapprovingly and said, "Perhaps my mother was right about men. They're nothing but savages." The blonde man retorted, "They're scared, it's natural for many to act that way, in support of the humans." Then, among numerous other catastrophes, he saw young kids buried beneath debris. Shadow clone spirit art. 10 clones materialized, making their way down to assist in whatever manner they could. He had to save his strength, although it wasn't much. He sat down on the building's concrete, pulled out a little scroll, and laid it out on the floor, saying, "I think it would be best if I rested a bit." When he infused it with chakra, a little metal container, a water bottle, and 2 servings of instant ramen materialized. He asked the woman who was with him, "Want some?" Given the circumstances, Diana asked, "Do you think it's wise to eat in a situation like this?" "Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a ninja. I mainly rely on the energy inside me called chakra. Thanks to that, I can do all those things you saw before, and I can do much more. The problem is that I get tired once my chakra runs out, and even though I have a lot, a good way to replenish it quickly is by eating. It's not instantaneous, but I have a fast metabolism." The blonde clarified, gaining the approval of Diana nodded. Taking out a little rectangular piece of paper with something written on it, the blonde man said, "So, you want some? Don't worry, my clones will handle the situation and keep the aliens away." Using the palm of his hand to activate the paper, he set the metal container on top and filled it with water. The container heated as the seal written on the paper started to glow. "An entire mobile kitchen. I never leave home without it." Diana inquired curiously, "Do all those things allow you to make these stamps?" He seemed very sentimental as he said, and the Amazon could see a hint of pain in his eyes. "Well, what almost all the ninjas in my village knew how to do was seal things, to store them away. Some knew how to heat things, but that teleportation seal is something much more advanced. I remember that it took 3 people to perform it. My father was the only one who could do it alone. In fact, he was the one who created it." She made the decision not to inquire further. "So, do you want to?" Diana said with a smile, "It looks intriguing." "Okay." Naruto grinned back. 3 minutes later, the same waiting period she usually claimed to detest, the ramen was ready. After receiving the tiny plastic container, Diana noticed that she was holding a pair of chopsticks and stopped eating. Her perplexity appeared to be noticed by Naruto. The blonde boy gestured, "You should eat it this way," while he ate a noodle. "It's the tradition where I come from, but if you want, I have a fork." Diana reassured her, "No, this is fine," so as not to irritate her new coworker. The blonde man showed her how to hold the chopsticks as she reluctantly picked them up with her fingers. At first, it was a little challenging, but she quickly understood the fundamentals and brought the noodles to her lips. She doubtfully exclaimed, since she had never eaten anything like this. She grinned, fully swallowing the noodles. "This is pretty good. A little spicy, but it tastes really good." I expertly said, "I knew you'd like it, nobody can hate ramen. It's the food of the gods." Diana giggled a little. After a few minutes of enjoying their meal in silence, Diana made the decision to talk again. She was aware that discussing her village was awkward, but maybe inquiries about her friends and accomplishments would be different. "I remember you mentioning something about your village to Lanterna. May I ask what you meant?" she asked. "Well, in my village I was a high ninja, which translates to elite ninja. In Konoha there were various ranks. Genin, low-level ninja. Chunin, mid-level ninja. High ninja, elite ninja. There was another subcategory called Takubetsu High Ninja, which translates to special elite ninja. This term refers to a ninja with a unique specialization in an advanced field. Then there were the Anbu Special Hunters. There were assigned missions of retrieval, capture, and assassination. Finally, there was the leader of the village. Hokage, which translates to Fire Shadow. They discussed the specifics of their respective communities and their distinctions for the remainder of the time. Naruto paid close attention to Diana's tales of her mother and sisters, their arduous training, and their ongoing struggles. Naruto was certain that she was from an island of warriors by birth. He was so curious to consider confronting them that it was a pity he could never get there. Both of them finished their ramen without even realizing it. Naruto even finished his customary 6 plates, which had been cooked while they were talking. Fortunately, though, the Martian with Green Lantern and Flash showed up as the blonde youngster was packing up his belongings. Diana asked, wait, where are Superman, Batman, and Hawkgirl? The Martian gestured toward Metropolis's smoke factory and said, Hawkeye and Superman are being held hostage right there. The Martian stared at the ground and said, unfortunately, Batman. There was no simple way to put it. Is dead. He fought like a true hero. With a terrified tone, Flash questioned, did the Bat die? This is bad, very bad. Don cautioned, and it will get worse. The Imperium is coming. Lantern inquired, what is the Imperium? It's the superior intelligence that controls all the invaders. We already know each other, he murmured. We must hurry and save them both. We'll need all the help we can get if we want to defeat the Imperium. Alright, said Green Lantern, then we'll launch the assault. Flash, you'll be the distraction. Diana, Naruto, you two will cover my back. Diana mockingly reminded him, do you want to depend on some fans? Naruto responded sarcastically, yeah, I mean, we're just a bunch of reckless kids. Lantern rolled his eyes. There were undoubtedly things he would never forget, but this moment also offered him an opportunity to gain a greater understanding of his capabilities. Flash did a fantastic job. He threw a rock like a baseball player to warn the guard tripod from behind. Hey, this way, exclaimed the red-clad hero. With a grating hissing sound, the world's fastest guy stuck his tongue out and started running. His movement and velocity were too fast for even the machine's accurate lasers to follow. You didn't even come close, the speedster said, yawning and slumping against a rock. Come on, turtle. I dare you, this way, he said, giving his adversary a tempting gesture. It appeared to be effective because the tripod was getting closer and attempted to crush Flash with one of its legs. The red-clad hero sidestepped the attack as if it were routine. The fact that there was debris from the opposite end of the rock that Flash had utilized as support caught the enemy off guard. The tripod lost its leg as a result of this debris, which appeared to be extremely unstable chemicals. The massive white machine collapsed without a third point of support. After the explosion, the speedy hero said, I think you messed up. He then proceeded to look for his fellows. Green Lantern, John, Naruto, and Diana entered the group of heroes by the same door that Superman or Hawkgirl should have used. Naturally, they had little trouble avoiding the alien guard in the area. Flash caught up to them once they were inside. According to Flash, did I delay you? Any communication the heroes tried was interrupted by the screams of alien voices before any of them could reply. With caution, they moved forward and looked around the corner of the hallway, where they discovered two more alien guards. John commanded, wait here, and then transformed into one of the extraterrestrials. He walked up to them and appeared to be speaking their language. The group of heroes was taken aback when he led them directly up to them, but before any of them could react, John materialized his arms inside the guards and used his intangibility to pass through them. Both guards were knocked down with a spasm and a yell. Flash questioned, is it just me, or do you guys get chills too? Ah, yes, said Naruto. As he yelled the word Toby in unison, he added in his mind, only not for the reasons you think. This location was worse than the others or, in Diana and Naruto's case, the earlier one. More twisted and turned than a Chahajensper picture, this is a real maze. They were thankful that John was there to lead them since without him, they most likely wouldn't be able to leave this place. His supporters were relieved when he said, we're close, in Martian. They made their way to what looked like a wall. I sense you're beyond this wall. Diana pushed, but it was too firm. It's useless, we'll have to find another way. Green Lantern and Naruto spoke, move aside let me. At the same time, Naruto showed off his lightning chakra blade, which had a beam of light that could cut through anything, while Lantern showed off his ring, which was blazing with the aim of using his laser. Choosing not to quarrel, they pulled their opposing efforts to pave the way more rapidly. As the Imperium ship approached the atmosphere, they had no idea what was going on outside the plant. Although it took them a long time, they eventually succeeded. They came across Superman and Hawkgirl, inmates, upside down, on the opposite side right away. Great hair, Diana remarked with admiration. Wait, something's wrong, said the Martian. However, the warning was given too late. Superman's and Hawkgirl's eyes opened, showing a bright red that contrasted with their normal colors. Every hero retreated a step. It's a trap, exclaimed Green Lantern, watching the entrance they had made slide shut. The next event was the gas leaking from the walls, which made everyone cough a lot. With a harsh cough, John screamed, flashlight, use your ring. He fell heavily to the ground and answered, no, I can't focus my mind. The blonde lad tried and that was the crucial word when Diana said, Naruto, use your teleportation. He was rendered unconscious after his senses were severed, and his motor coordination for the technique's hand seals was destroyed. He last saw Hawkgirl and Superman transform back into their original white alien selves. In his nightmares, the blonde boy heard a voice in the distance say, Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. As the sound grew louder, he inquired eagerly, Yu-chan. Although it seemed feminine and familiar, he quickly recognized that it was the voice of someone else he had just met rather than Yuga Yuzuki. Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. The blonde child said as he opened his eyes and took in the scene. Diana, who was by his side, asked, Naruto, are you alright? In actuality, they were all inmates in a weird prison constructed of a sticky substance. They couldn't get away. I feel like I'm about to use my body as a trampoline, the blond man grumbled, describing how his muscles affected him. He finally inquired worriedly, Harem, are you alright? But quickly saw that some were already awake. The people standing next to him were Superman, John, Green Lantern. The guy of steel protested, they shouldn't have come. John asked, wouldn't you have done the same for me? Flash moaned, ugh. My head hurts. One of those aliens appeared out of nowhere on an elevated platform in front of him. The creature said, the strongest heroes on Earth, with a tremendous sense of superiority. After saying this, it transformed into a shape that most of the heroes, if not all of them, were familiar with. Welcome. Superman called, Senator Carter. When the spy remarked, unfortunately, the real Carter never returned from the moon, he was satisfied. The Kryptonian shot back, you used me to weaken Earth's defenses. The contented grin never left his face as he spoke, you were so eager to cooperate. Thanks to you, humans are completely defenseless against us. It seemed as though he had already triumphed against the heroes in his imagination. It's not over yet, exclaimed Superman. Carter retorted, you were wrong again, Superman, as the factory roof opened to reveal a ship that was significantly larger than the other aliens' typical ships. The gathering looked toward the landing ship, including the phony Senator Carter. He enthusiastically exclaimed, hail the Imperium, and then bowed with the other extraterrestrials. The ship's lowest section soon opened. Thick white smoke billowed out with a surge of air. It gave rise to the Imperium, the race that would lead this extraterrestrial race. Everyone was incredulous. It had many tentacles growing from different areas, somewhat like a purple bacterium. As it floated closer, the creature said, John Johns, it's been a long time. It added to the tense atmosphere, as if the thunder from the man-made electrical storm wasn't enough. As if presenting him on a silver platter, it stretched out the material in which the Martian was imprisoned, and positioned him in front of it with a simple flick of its tentacles. The Martian remained unaffected and did not flinch. The Martian screamed in pain until he lost his transformation and fell to his knees in agony, while the leader's nearest guards, sensing his insolence, struck him with their electric staffs. None of his supporters could do anything to save him. They were all merely onlookers. Naruto stayed motionless and repeated it to himself. He tried to control his rage by saying, stay still, stay still, stay still. With a satisfied sigh, the commander said, much better. You have challenged us for centuries. This time, the Martian stood up and admitted, and I will never bow down to you or any of your race. Then do what should have been done long ago, the commander declared, his tentacles hesitating. The elimination of the last Martian. The purple tentacles swiftly reached John and buried themselves under his flesh. They skillfully merged themselves farther and farther, approaching his head and passing in front of his right eye, and it hurt, really hurt. At last, they drew John in, enfolding him in their arms. John let out a louder scream. The League members were only able to observe the Martian's internal writhing, while excruciating flashes and screams broke out. Despite the excruciating pain, he made an unsuccessful attempt to escape. The alien had actually imprisoned him. Superman yelled, let him go, coward. As he witnessed his companion yelling and making futile attempts to escape. The blond man kept chanting, stay still, stay still, stay still. He mustn't give in, not now, not now, not when he was so close. Just a little longer. The leader said firmly, surrender to us, John Johns. The Martian, steadfast in the face of ongoing pain, answered, never. He went on to say, why are you resisting? Accept this truth. Continuing his superiority statement. After all these years, you finally lost. You think so? I growled and added. Sensing the nature of the secret but not the truth itself, I boldly said, you're hiding something, a very deep secret in the recesses of your mind. The commander yelled, is this another one of your Martian tricks? I confidently asked, do I feel afraid? When he got no response, he yelled out in desperation, what are you hiding? The Martian let out a painful scream. Now. He made one final attempt before reverting to his typical shape. The warning everyone needed was the sound of an explosion. Batman stood resting against the crystal core above it. Impossible, Green Lantern declared. John admitted, I placed a telepathic field on him to prevent them from detecting him. The machine's distinctive orange color was drastically modified to a deep blue by placing a gadget adjacent to the crystal. Demanding, what did you do? Was the leader. The monotone response from Batman was, I reversed the ion charge. To halt the process, the aliens attempted to shoot the crystal, but they were thwarted by the energy field they had established to shield it. Reversing the operation of the smoke factory has immediate impacts. It started to scatter the sun across Metropolis, rather than forming that never-ending storm to keep it out. The first harm had been done, but the sun had returned, and the aliens, who could not stand the sun's rays, took cover in any shadow they could find. John broke free, grabbing all the tentacles still inside him, and pushing him out into the sun, because the sunshine damaged even the Imperium. As bubbles from the sunburn formed, Flash couldn't help but ask, you live underground and shun the light. Why? Are you afraid of burning your rotten skin? He exclaimed, wow, a nasty sunburn, with distaste. When Batman landed in front of them, Naruto grinned and said, finally. Naruto just shook his head as the Dark Knight prepared to let him go. The young man's eyes had changed significantly, which startled the Caped Crusader. He effortlessly released himself by cutting the elastic material holding him and using natural energy to manipulate the energy of the environment. There's something you should know about me. It's not wise to leave a sage alone. Then he released his feet with his chakra blades. Superman used his laser vision to free himself after enhancing his abilities with sunlight, while Batman proceeded to the next set of prisoners. When Diana was free, Naruto let her go. She became aware of the shift in his eyes at that moment. She said anxiously, what happened to you? Your eyes look like. He concluded, to those of a toad. He released the Amazon with 2 last cuts, saying, I'll explain all this once we're done with them. The woman blocked the attacker's quick onslaught by lifting her right bracelet in front of the blonde man's back and shouting, watch out. Superman persisted in moving forward, using his strength to raise the ground in order to obstruct the enemy's view and buy Batman time to fully liberate everyone. As time ran out, Superman himself released the other victims with Naruto's assistance. Lantern was able to fly in the direction of his adversaries, pull the ring that was buried next to his hand out of the material, and shoot several enemies with a strong laser. Flash, hardly able to move from his confinement, charged at the enemies and knocked them out with his speed force alone. Hawkgirl drew her war mace, which was likewise covered with the substance, and shot into the sunshine, ruthlessly attacking her adversaries as she swung it from side to side. Prioritizing that, Superman and Diana worked to open the building's roof to let in sunshine. Lantern assisted with his ring as well. But Naruto's attention was drawn to something they had failed to notice. John. He cut through the tentacles that overpowered the Martian's body with his chakra swords, this time infused with the wind release element. The cuts in the unrelenting sun that scorched his flesh caused the leader to flinch in agony. While the aliens concentrated on protecting their leader, Naruto removed the tentacles that remained inside John. Diana saw how hard it was for the blonde lad to approach and block the assaults. He was unable to protect himself from the opponents and assist John at the same time. The wise guy asked the Martian, are you alright? I will be, but we can't let those monsters escape, the Martian, who was still physically weak, answered. What she meant was clear to the blonde man. The Imperium was cowardly running back to his spacecraft. Even one of his minions, the phony Senator Carter, sought to accompany him, but as if he were a waste of space, he shoved him away from the ship. When he hit the ground, the light melted him. The leader, anyway, was attempting to get away. To keep the ship from moving any further away, Diana roped his tail. In a triple chorus, Naruto yelled, keep it there. She was taken aback by the reason his voice sounded that way, and saw that there were 2 copies of Naruto in addition to the original. They each clasped their hands together, lifting them to the sky to create a white sphere that quickly expanded. I have to compress it enough to throw it this far. It transformed into a whirling, multi-bladed white disc in a matter of seconds. Senpo. Race and Shuriken. Diana immobilized the ship and launched the disc with the orb at its center at it. The heroes were all in awe at the scene as they saw the attack crash into it. Naruto's strike multiplied multiple times upon impact, destroying everything in its path, as it formed a massive sphere of uncontrolled wind that was worse than any tornado they had ever witnessed. When the attack was over, they saw that the whole area of the ship where it had occurred was gone. The metal had been ripped and crushed. Lave crashed into its own facility after losing a portion of its engine. In order to save all of the kidnapped humanity from inside, the heroes had to move swiftly. They were able to get everyone out in a matter of seconds with the assistance of Green Lantern, Superman, Naruto, and Flash. Now that everyone was safe, the heroes could only watch as the mothership fled, their soldiers completely routed, and the skies cleared. They would learn their lesson against tampering with Earth from that. It was finished. The newly established organization, which the Man of Steel dubbed the Justice League, was prepared with the Watchtower, an outer space facility that Batman had granted them at Superman's request. They had even persuaded the Martian, who had been absorbed in contemplation for a few minutes while studying Mars, to become a member of their team, thus providing him with a new family. Only then did they notice that one final member was absent. Naruto. The blonde man was at the other end of the spacecraft, looking out at the beauty of Earth, while the Martian stared at his former home planet. John, Superman, and Diana went up to the enigmatic ninja and made their proposition. Do you agree? Asked Superman. The blonde man just looked at the globe, not answering right away. It was very different from the one he was from, but it was also quite similar. It was the first time he had discussed this with anyone, and maybe it was what he needed. I've already lost everything once, just like John, my loved ones are gone. The ninja system was abolished, and along with it, I ceased to be useful for anything, but not only that. My fiancé, my teammates, the person I saw as a mother, they're all gone. He explained in pain. I was given the opportunity to go somewhere else where I felt needed, where my skills were required. According to them, it was also an opportunity for me to heal and gain a family again. Of course, when I arrived, I didn't want that. I only focused on stopping crime and forgetting all my pain. By now, Batman, Hulkgirl, and Green Lantern were all listening to his tale. Over time, the pain of loss faded, but in its place, only loneliness remained. I tried to fill the void many times, but I was never given a chance. I believe I've finally been given one. The blonde guy looked to the heroes. Although there was resolve in his statement, his tone eventually became resentful. I'm a wandering ninja who travels only to save people from dangers they can't see. With a fox-like smile, the blonde man moved slightly away from the group to watch them. I've noticed that we've saved many lives together, many more than I could have done alone. No matter how strong I am or how much I train, I can't do it alone. That's why I want to be part of this league. In front of them, he stood at attention, staring at Superman. Much to everyone's amazement, the blonde lad gave a thorough introduction, saying, I am Naruto, elite ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village and sage of Mount Maiboku, at your service. He wasn't known for being so formal. Sheepishly, he admitted, haha, it's a custom in my village, normally I wouldn't do it, but out of respect, I wanted to. Superman grinned and said, I understand, welcome to the Justice League. Flash rushed to his side and threw an arm around his shoulders in a friendly gesture, shouting, alright. We've got the ninja kid among us. Now, seriously. Breathing fire. Wind. Teleportation. And what was that sage thing? By the way, Naruto, don't you have a secret identity? Whoa, slow down a bit, one question at a time. About my attacks, those are called spirit art. They're forms of attack through chakra manipulation. It's the energy everyone used in my village. Sage refers to my ability to merge with nature to gather energy from it and enhance my attacks, strength, and speed. And regarding the secret identity, I don't need it. I mean, I do this for a living and make money through my books. It's not like I need a secret identity. He clarified, chuckling. It was apparent that Flash's speed wasn't just for sprinting. Superman, who was a reporter himself, was intrigued by that knowledge and said, books. A writer-hero was a novel concept. He said, well, my mentor wrote a book called The Story of a Gutsy Ninja, as he took the book out of a seal in one of his pockets. Since he pulled it from underneath his pockets, no one could see it. All I did was publish it here and in various languages around the world. In just 3 months, it was already among the best-selling books. For some reason, ninja stories are popular here, but where I come from, nobody paid any attention to them. He grumbled, slightly annoyed. He merely released legendary Sanin's book as a disciple's obligation to disseminate his teacher's ideas. He had no interest in profiting from its success from the start. Publishers soon asked me for a sequel, and I remembered a friend telling me it would be a good idea to start writing my adventures once I finished my journey. Basically, that's what I did, and I got paid well. His grin returned. I've written 6 books, and I'm releasing the 7th next month. Thanks to the worldwide success, things are going quite well for me. I guess you're right about not needing a secret identity, Flash said reflectively. He swiftly said to himself, but you still need a name that'll become famous easily. Wandering Ninja. No, that sounds like a villain's name. With his hands moving in an imaginary arc for extra drama, he confirmed, I think I've got it. The Sage. The blonde man asked, the wise one. Yeah, it's short and catchy. People will love it. Right. Flash asked some League members for their approval this time. I start by confirming, yes, it's Superman. People expect a name that represents something reliable. Everything will be fine as long as they don't make me wear tights and shout, the power of youth. He shot back with a little uneasy twitch. Naruto's stomach's insistence on eating cut short the moment. He begged, Air. Is there ramen at the watchtower? The blonde man's odd request caused many of the heroes to raise their eyebrows. The only person who could reply with a smile was Diana. No, when Flash introduced me to Cappuccino, I tried to find it, but it's not available. The blonde man smirked and said, well, luckily I have months' worth of ramen stored with me, anyone wants some? Diana agreed and moved on once more. I'd like to try that again. As he followed the Amazon toward the kitchen of the watchtower, the ninja said, good, because they're not unique flavors. I have 10 flavors you haven't tried yet. The others watched in amazement as Diana and Naruto interacted. They had no idea that the Amazon and the blonde would grasp each other so rapidly. The first person to respond was Lantern. Many heads nodded in agreement, saying, great, we've got another eccentric like Flash.